the WorldNet Daily organization, website, magazine, the Whistleblower magazine. David is an excellent writer. Don't read it. I don't read. Well, I do read a lot, but I don't read everybody regularly. But I do read David's columns usually regularly, and he joins us now to talk about this situation. David, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good, but you're bringing everybody down here. But
that's me. You know, Captain Sunshine is what I'm called here at the office, David.
But you know, my eyes glaze over too with the economy. I'm not an economist. I'm a journalist, and I don't like to use the jargon, but it really is important for regular people to understand what's going on now with this topic. And can I just mention the debt ceiling thing you guys
No,
were
you
talking
go right
about?
ahead. That's why we had you on.
It's the same. It's Obama's view is the same as Geithner, but what you didn't mention is Obama is now saying, look, don't talk to me about the debt ceiling because he has a legal, phony constitutional strategy. He's taking a line from the Constitution. I can't quote it to you, but it has to do with not questioning the faith and credit of the United States and its debts and so forth. He's planning on using that to basically trump the House. You know, the spending begins in the House of Representatives and all that. We know who took civics and actually read the Constitution. He is planning on, if he needs to, trumping that and basically saying your vote on raising the debt ceiling is irrelevant. The Constitution says, according to his theory and his lawyers, that I have a right to raise the debt ceiling so we don't default on our debts, and we're going to do it, whether the House agrees with it or not.
So
that's been written about a lot, so that probably is what he has in the wings here, where he can come out and say, look, don't even talk to me about the debt ceiling.
So what you're suggesting is that, I mean, he said repeatedly, look, if Congress won't do it, I'll just go around them. What you're suggesting is by executive order or some kind of other executive fiat, he would just ignore the inaction of Congress and ignore the Constitution and just go right ahead and raise the debt ceiling on his own.
Control. The same as he did with the DREAM Act. A few months before he instituted the DREAM Act by executive fiat, he actually said publicly, or you can see it on YouTube, that it would be illegal for him to do that. And he ended up doing the same thing, making illegal aliens legal.
David Ryan, I understand what you guys are saying, but I don't think he... I would agree with you that President Obama doesn't always care for the Constitution. But in this case, even Timothy Geithner, the Secretary of Treasury, has acknowledged that it is the Congress's authority to raise or not to raise the debt ceiling. Now, he would like to take that away. That's why he's asked that President Obama be granted, that we do away with the debt ceiling altogether. But he hasn't suggested to me that they don't have the authority to... that is the Congress to raise the debt ceiling.
Well, I said, Obama himself said on TV that it would be illegal, unconstitutional actually, for him to unilaterally give us the DREAM Act dealing with illegal aliens, and then he went and did it. So I don't take too much solace from the fact that Geithner said, well, yeah, this is Congress. He kind of has to say that, but in a crisis...
That's a constitutional crisis, though. More than the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act, yes, I agree.
Well, what better time for him to say, listen, we can't wait for Congress. This is a constitutional crisis. We need to do this now.
And then, David, I think the question would come up, and this is the $64,000 question. Let's assume that President Obama decides to do that like he did with the DREAM Act and like he's done with other things. Who's going to stop him?
That's the question. I think the fact, the Obamacare decision in the Supreme Court, which everybody was surprised by the Chief Justice's vote, I think that emboldened Obama, just like re-electing has emboldened him, to where he says, look, we'll tie it up in courts. The chances are the courts will agree with me because we get some kind of perverse judges. But even if they don't, 2.5 years from now, when they finally decide that, it's already a fait accompli. It's been done, and you can't undo it. And so either way, I think they have nothing to lose. The Holder Justice Department is totally in Obama's pocket and on the page with him. So I think they can go and do anything they want, and if the Republicans take him to court, he just says, look, I'll be out in Hawaii in my mansion playing golf 24/7 by the time this even gets to court.
And David, one thing, just to kind of for clarification, I'd like your take on this. I think you're right that President Obama is going to use that honoring of American debt in the Constitution. That's got to be honored. That's got to be protected. And we all agree with that. If the United States has debts, it needs to satisfy those obligations. But here's my point. The only way you technically go into default on your debt is if you don't pay the interest payments on that debt. And right now, this is going up every year, but right now, it only takes about 10% of tax revenues to service the debt, about $220 billion a year. So the only way we go into default is if we don't take at least $220 billion and service the debt. We got $2.4 trillion. There's plenty of money there to service the debt. But I think what President Obama is going to do is to try to lump things like Social Security and Medicare, which technically are not debts. We may have some kind of moral obligation there, but we haven't borrowed money that we have to pay back.
Yes, you're absolutely right, but this is the same argument that the good guys made a year ago when we last passed the raised the debt ceiling. We said, listen, tax money already will cover the interest, and when you talk about defaulting, okay, that was the word that was thrown around by all kinds of media that knew not what they were talking about. Defaulting means what you just said it was. You fall behind just like on your credit card payments. They don't want you to pay it off. As long as you keep paying the interest, the minimum payments, you haven't defaulted. The U.S. does not need to raise the debt ceiling to avoid default. But you know what? They lie. I mean, I hate to sound so crude and indelicate, but they lie. They say, oh, we're going to default. You're not going to default. But they scare everybody, and they scare the Republicans, and the media intimidate the Republican Congress, and that's how we get to things like this ridiculous fiscal cliff agreement we just got, which raises taxes and doesn't cut any spending, because they lie, they malign, they set up the Republicans to look bad, like they're going to destroy the country if we don't pass this. This is just business as usual. You guys were saying earlier, well, why does Obama do this? Listen, it's really considered bad manners to say this, but the man really does have a Marxist, radical redistributionist viewpoint. We're in a world where it's sort of considered to be bad manners to say things like that. He was a radical Marxist in college to the point that the head of the Marxist organization there in his first college had to kind of pull him back and say, no, we need to work within the system in order to change things and not have a radical, violent revolution. The guy has a really, really, un-American Marxist past. I know it sounds jarring. We don't use words. We like to say, leftist, radicalism, and so forth. But, words have meanings, okay? He believes in radical redistribution, and from a Marxist viewpoint, capitalism is absolutely the enemy and must be destroyed. So there's a great deal of this sort of grievance mentality that capitalism and rich people need to be punished and need to be put in their place, and we need to redistribute the wealth, not just within this country but overseas. That is absolutely what animates Obama and is seen in every single thing he does. And not to sort of face up to that is just to, is just to not face up to reality. So we need to understand why he's doing what he's doing. He really doesn't like capitalism. He doesn't like America the way the founders gave it to us, and he's trying to transform it.
Dave Kupelian joining us from WorldNet Daily, WND.com. I'm Tim Wildman with Brian Fisher. So you would lean towards, as I said, the net effect is the same, so whether we can prove it or not, I guess, is academic. But you would lean, David, toward the idea that President Obama is intentionally trying to bankrupt the country? Or do you think he's just a subscriber to, is it Keynesian economics that believes you can borrow your way to prosperity? And the only thing with Keynesian economics, first of all, I don't know where it's ever worked before. And secondly, if it doesn't work, there is no plan B.
Yeah.
So what do you think there?
Let me clarify. I don't see Obama as some sort of Hitler or Stalin that wants to kill tens of millions of people. I don't think he has that kind of.
I haven't, and nobody suggested that.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I think he's just a hardcore socialist that really has a lot of resentments and grievances against America and wants to sort of bring it down to the level of the rest of the world. And that involves taking from rich people and giving to everybody else.
Yeah, but what about the debt?
But
what about the debt that he's piling on with the aid of the Congress? At least, they have to approve spending too. But $6 trillion in 4 years, soaring toward $20 trillion.
Well,
I don't care if he's a Marxist or not. He knows that the thing is going to fall apart one day, doesn't he?
Well, I don't know what he knows. Okay, he may be, a man to believe as he does has to suspend reality on many things, and so it may be that the fact that our money is continually inflated and we increase our debt, but it can go on for years after year after year. There are people who believe it can just go on and on and on and on. Look, if it's 16 trillion, why not 26 trillion or 36 or 136 trillion? What is to stop it? Yeah, there really are reasons.
So you can just defy the laws of economics because you're American.
You can defy the laws of God and man and economics and common sense.
Some people
and reality,
believe that.
But yeah, look, the reality is, as opposed to what Obama might think, eventually China will not loan us any more money when they know we're just going to pay them back with inflated currency. Eventually you can't tax anymore because the productive sector will rebel and leave the country, which is what's happening in France right now. 75% tax. The rich people are all leaving. And eventually, the only course you have is to inflate. We could solve all our problems and pay all our debts tomorrow. All we have to do is print lots of trillion-dollar bills, and we really can pay off all our debts that way. We would have defrauded everybody, and we would have destroyed the entire accumulated wealth of the middle class of America in the process, which is why we don't like to do that. But that we're getting to where inflation, and devaluing our currency in a radical way is the only thing left for us. This does not have a happy ending when you have $100 or $200 trillion in debt, including all the
but how I guess I don't want to be a dog chasing its tail here and relive the election, but how does a guy who subscribes to the ideology that you've suggested, which is totally anti-American if you look at our history, how does he win?
Because he's cool.
Charlie Brown should be able to beat him. Huh? I mean, honestly. Go ahead.
Well, look, you guys know and your listeners know that when you have 46 million people on food stamps.
Oh, there you go. You and Mitt Romney.
When you have so many people that are dependent on government, that's how they're going to vote. And the sad, cynical thing is that these people, the modern Democratic Party knows that, and they intentionally will cultivate the dependency of people in order to have their vote. That is really, that is so wicked that it's easy for people listening to think, no, it can't be. That just sounds conspiratorial. It can't be. They really mean well because our minds reel.
I know.
And mine does too. It reels back. I don't want to think so badly about people. But, when you watch someone like Harry Reid talk and say, oh, the Republicans are doing this, and believe me, these people, maybe not all the people that voted for Obama. They're young. They think that there's a war on women and they're going to take contraception away. But I'm talking about the people up there in power. They do know. They know what they're doing to the economy. They know they're going to cause all these problems. This is not a nice class of people that you have at the very top that are running the Democratic Party. Sorry.